Welcome to the Stoic Dad. This is a podcast where we talk about fatherhood. We talk about it from the perspective of Stoicism, dealing with the difficulties of being a father and having a vision of the wider goal that you're aiming at. People think you shouldn't have kids because it doesn't fit into a convenient life and a career, or how it affects the planet, or so on. But what's lacking in all that is a vision of what is life about? What's having children all about? I mean, if life is worth living, then it's worth living for other people too. And that would be why we would perpetuate the human race, very basically. But it's this view about the sufferings and the difficulties of life that often is an obstacle to even having kids, much less to knowing how to be a good father to them. Life as a father isn't all convenient. Sometimes the other idea about fatherhood is just have the right number of kids and the right way of life, that it just fits in perfectly with what you're already doing. It doesn't inhibit your career, doesn't inhibit your wife's career, and so on. But that's just not realistic. Having kids shows you that career isn't even what it's all about. Not to mention, it does inhibit your career. It does stretch you and pull you in other directions. And so a view of life that's not all about individual happiness directly is essential to being a father. Now, that goes beyond just Stoicism per se to Epicureanism in the proper view of happiness and how to enjoy life. So what I'm really looking for is a vision of philosophical fatherhood. I study philosophy. I'm a father now, as of 3 weeks ago, of 3. This is something I need, but find that I lack. And I can't imagine that I'm the only person who doesn't have much of a vision of what this looks like. The internet is full of mommy blogs. And the men's spaces online are a lot about just physically improving yourself or making yourself better at your career, because the intrinsic interests of men, at least in a modern economic context, are more in those things than in how can I be a good father and have lots of progeny, or things that used to be at the center of a man's life in other ages. There's something that's being lost there. And for those of us who are actually engaged in fatherhood, what is that supposed to look like? What is that all about? We're going to interview various guests from across different perspectives who have something to say to this question. And it's not going to stay restricted to a little parenting advice or any of that. It's going to be a full-orbed view of life and the place that fatherhood and children, and because we were all once a child, really what life is all about. So that's the goal with this podcast, The Stoic Dad, and hopefully it'll cross different platforms, and we'll do some other formats, not just interviews, though I'm pretty excited to interview some of our guests that I have not yet lined up, but envisioned. Have my first email out to a guest, and we'll see where that goes, but very excited about that one and others coming down the line, but hopefully other types of content just about life as a father. And the difficulties are especially front and center, say, in the first few weeks of an infant's life, even as it's very simple: sleep, eat, poop, and so on, and cry, apparently. But those difficulties continue and change throughout a child's life. The joys of being a father come in different phases, and there's always the mix. And so Stoicism always presents a helpful perspective, but I know me right now, that's something that I could use. I'm sure I'm not the only one. So join me on The Stoic Dad, and hopefully we can all become Stoic Dads.